Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Cameron here.
And Nicole.
We're back with you here at I'm Not Crazy Podcast. Leading into the Christmas season and Hanukkah, I wanted to dive into a few different true Christmas haunting stories.
Okay.
It's an old tradition to tell scary ghost stories on late winter nights, and a tradition that I'm Not Crazy is going to try to bring back.
Is it a tradition?
It's an old tradition, yes.
You just
the seasons
tell people spooky stories?
Yeah, I mean, end of the year, nights are longer, people were gathered around fire, so it was just kind of an old folklore tradition around the holidays to tell ghost stories around the fire. So here at I'm Not Crazy, we're going to try to bring that back.
Let's do it.
The first ghost story I want to talk about is the Ghost Bride of Brahms Hill House, or the Mistletoe Bride.
Okay.
To set the scene a bit and give you an idea of the property, Brahms Hill House is located in northeast Hampshire in England. It's one of the largest and most important Jacobean prodigy house mansions in England. Prodigy houses are the large, showy English country houses built by courtiers and other wealthy families.
Okay.
Jacobean being in the era of King James.
Okay.
So pretty old.
Yeah.
The property originally dates as far back as 1086 AD, but has seen many changes over time. It was originally a chapel, and then a small manor house was constructed in 1360. But in March 1605, Edward La Zouche, the 11th Baron Zouche and a favorite of King James I, bought the property with new house plans in hand.
Okay.
He demolished a large part of the original structure and began to build Brahms Hill House we know today. Now, to actually give you an idea of what this looks like, it's a 10-bedroom, 4,300,000 square foot residence.
Too big.
With a Grade I listed Jacobean manor set on 92 acres of Grade I listed parkland, woodland, lakes, and its own herd of deer.
Bitch.
It's a very fancy manor. King James himself used its set of state apartments in 1620 and 1622, and his successor, King Charles I, used them in 1630.
What are you going to do with 10 bedrooms?
I mean, it's high society. It's hosting its parties. It's royalty using it as like apartments too. It is said to have 14 separate hauntings, but for today, we're just going to focus.
So one for each room and then some?
Yeah, and then a little extra. More people have died in the rooms.
Great.
But today we're just going to focus on one story. But, we might come back and look at some of these maybe someday, some of these other famous hauntings.
Okay.
In the early 17th century, a young girl named Anne Cope was due to be married at the house on Christmas Day to Lord Lovell.
Sounds like a nice man.
Lovely man. Anne Cope was related to Sir John Cope, who was the current owner of the house, hence them having the wedding at such a crazy, fancy estate.
Yeah.
As the wedding was decorated for Christmas, the new bride was struck by a fun idea before retiring to the wedding chamber.
What? Okay.
Inspired by the mistletoe hanging in the house,
let me do something fun before we
Yep, that's where it's going.
go consummate the wedding.
She suggested that the wedding party play a quick game of hide and seek, with her being the hider and the groomsmen being the seekers.
Okay.
Whoever found her would be rewarded with a mistletoe Christmas kiss.
It's not what I expected, but all right.
That's what we're doing.
Okay.
She requested a 5-minute...
Whoever finds her?
I need the groommen. Yeah, it's all the groomsmen.
Huh. Okay.
Times were different, ma'am. She requested a 5-minute head start in order to find a good hiding spot.
Okay.
And then the party was to begin their search. What started as a fun game to end the night began to grow into a serious situation as the minutes stretched into hours with the new bride nowhere to be found. A full search party of the guests was assembled, but still no sight or sound from Anne Cope. With the guests departing, Lord Lovell continued his search throughout.
They were just like, all right, we're going to go.
I mean, at some point I got to go home, I'm sure either it's a joke or she ran away, but I'm going to go home. I don't like going to weddings as it is. And it's on Christmas, so you've ruined my Christmas plans.
Okay.
Lord Lovell continued to search throughout the night and into the day without any luck. Days stretched into weeks, weeks into years, weeks into years, and years into decades with no sign from the bride. Some guests speculated that the new bride had concocted an escape plan through the clever disguise of the game of hide and seek.
Sounds like it.
While others believed the more tragic scenario, that she had become stuck or lost and died inside the manor. 50 years later, we would get our answer as to what happened to the Christmas bride.
50 years?
50 years later.
Okay.
Never giving up his search, Lord Lovell spent decades searching the house for clues as to what happened to his beloved Anne. While searching in the attic, he found a hidden door that had never been searched. As Anne's father owned the house, it is assumed that she knew more of the mansion's layout, including more of its secrets.
Okay.
Inside the door sat an old chest that was sealed and undisturbed. Upon opening the chest, Lord Lovell discovered the remains of his wife of a few hours, Anne Cope.
Wait, so she locked herself in a secret room, and in that secret room she locked herself in something else?
Yes, but I've also read versions where she was just in a chest in the attic. I'm going with the more fanciful version. So she might have just been in a trunk in the attic, but it might have also been in a secret hidden room. She was in her wedding dress, still clutching the mistletoe. The lid of the chest was marked in scratches, and old blood showed attempts of her escape. It is assumed that after climbing in the chest, it latched and locked her inside. The noises of the search party covered up her screams for help coming from the hidden door through the chest in the attic. You look stunned by this?
I'm also baffled that someone would just lock themselves in a secret room and then in a chest.
Let's also maybe just imagine it might have just been like a chest in the attic. Maybe not so hidden.
I feel like a chest is
Still
like a
pretty,
bad idea
yeah.
anyways, because you know that thing latches.
Yeah.
Because if you think of like trunks back in the day, they have that latch
Mm-hmm.
where it clings on, and people usually put a lock. Usually put a lock over it.
Your classic treasure chest, and that's kind of what this looked like. There have been accounts of a ghostly white lady repeatedly passing through the Fleur de Lis room. Reportedly, Michael I of Romania asked to be moved to another room during his stay in there, in order to not be disturbed by the young woman in white who passed through his bedroom every single night. The bride supposedly announces her spectral arrival with her favorite scent, Lily of the Valley.
Mm-hmm.
I do like this creepy ghost story, but unfortunately, I did find a lot of the plot holes in the history of this.
Okay.
Some people believe that the bride is not that of Anne Cope, but of Genevieve Orsini, who was married in 1727.
So they think it's another bride?
Yeah, this might be just kind of based on another story.
Okay.
Rather than hiding and dying in the house, her ghost in the chest was brought to Bramshill House from Italy. This is an Italian folklore story to begin with. Sir William Cope wrote and published a poem about the Bramshill ghost bride, but this was likely a retelling of the story that he had picked up on his travels to Italy. It was there that he bought the chest in question, possibly with the story already attached to it.
Okay.
The name of the ghostly bride changes frequently between accounts as well as the husband, so because of that, there might not be as much truth into the whole origin of that, but regardless, there's still a woman in white often seen in Bramshill House, especially around Christmas.
I feel like a woman in white is always a common ghost story.
And then I feel like usually there's some sort of sad story like this attached to it.
For
yeah, dying
her
young.
husband, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Waiting for the love of her life.
Speaking of other ladies, we have the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall.
Brown lady?
The Brown Lady of
Racist
Raynham
thing?
Hall. No. It is said that the spirit of the Brown Lady can be frequently spotted on Christmas in Raynham Hall in Norfolk, England. This is again a very old, nice manor house that was completed in 1637, so a little later though.
Yeah.
Again in this story, we do have the identity of the spirit. It is believed to be Dorothy Walpole, the sister of Robert Walpole, who was considered the first Prime Minister of Great Britain, and the second wife of Charles Townshend. Charles Townshend was an English Whig statesman and had a notorious temper. Suspecting his wife Dorothy of committing an affair with Lord Wharton, Charles locked her in Raynham Hall, not permitting her to leave under any circumstance. She wasn't allowed to see her children, and people would send her social invites knowing that Charles wouldn't allow her to leave her and attend.
Okay.
She was trapped inside the hall until her death of smallpox in 1726.
Jeez.
This is a good tragic setting for a ghost story, though.
Yeah.
The first appearance of Dorothy's spirit in the halls comes to us from Lucia C. Stone, attending a gathering at the hall in 1835. Stone says that Charles Townshend invited guests to the hall for Christmas, including a man named Colonel Loftus and another man named Hawkins. Loftus and Hawkins reported seeing a brown lady in the halls as they approached their bedroom the previous night. And just to clarify, the reason they say brown lady is because she's wearing a brown old-fashioned dress and nothing to do with anything else, her cleanliness or anything. The following night, Loftus claimed to have seen the brown lady this time again. This time, though, he made eye contact with an eyeless face. dark holes in the specter's glowing face. This second account caused some of the guests to leave immediately. The next report of the ghost came in 1836 by Captain Frederick Marryat, a friend of novelist Charles Dickens and an author of a series of popular sea novels. He requested to stay the night in the most haunted room in the hall in order to squash rumors of hauntings. He believed that the evidence was caused by local smugglers trying to scare people away from the area. So he's coming at it with a Scooby-Doo hypothesis, which I like. Florence Marryat wrote about her father's experience in 1891, saying, "He took possession of the room in which the portrait of the apparition hung, and in which he had often been seen, and slept each night with a loaded revolver under his pillow.
Jesus.
For 2 days, however, he saw nothing, and on the third day was to be the limit of his stay. On the third night, however, 2 young men, nephews of his, knocked at his door as he was undressing to go to bed and asked him to step over to their room, which is the other end of the corridor, and gave them his opinion on a new gun that had just arrived from London. Just a late-night gun viewing.
Yeah.
My father was in his shirt and trousers, but as the hour was late and everybody had retired to rest except for them, he prepared to accompany them as he was, in his skivvies. As they were leaving the room, he caught up his revolver. 'In case you meet the brown lady,' he said, laughing. When the inspection of the gun was over, the young man in the same spirit declared that they would accompany my father back again in case he met the brown lady. They repeated laughing. The 3 gentlemen therefore returned in company. The corridor was long and dark, for the lights had been extinguished, but as they reached the middle of it, they saw the glimmer of a lamp coming towards them from the other end. 'One of the ladies going to visit the nurseries,' whispered the young townsend to my father. Now the bedroom doors in that corridor faced each other, and each room had a double door with a space between, as is the case of many old-fashioned houses.
Mm-hmm.
My father, as I have said, was in shirt and trousers only, and his native modesty made him feel uncomfortable, so he slipped within one of the outer doors, and his friends following in his example, in order to conceal himself until the lady should pass by.
Okay.
I've heard him describe how he watched her approaching near and nearer through the chink of the door, until as she was close enough for him to distinguish the colors and style of her costume, he recognized the figure as that of the portrait of the brown lady. He had his finger on the trigger of his revolver and was about to demand it to stop and give the reason for its presence there, when the figure halted of its own accord before the door which he stood, and holding the lighted lamp she carried to her features, grinned in a malicious and diabolical manner at him.
Interesting.
This act so infuriated my father, who was with anything but lamb-like in disposition, that he sprang into the corridor with a bound and discharged the revolver right at her face. If that was a maid, he just would have...
describes him as like lamb-like in his disposition.
As he jumps out to shoot a woman in the face. The figure instantly disappeared. The figure at which, for several minutes, 3 men had been looking at together, and the bullet passed through the outer door of the room on the opposite side of the corridor and lodged in the panel of the inner one. My father never attempted again to interfere with the brown lady of Rhineham.
Interesting.
The last little story about the brown lady is kind of interesting because there is a very famous photo of her, actually.
Was there really?
That was published. On September 19th in 1936, Captain Hubert C. Provend, a London-based photographer working for County Life magazine, and his assistant, Indre Shira, were taking photographs of Rhineham Hall for an article.
Mm-hmm.
They claimed that they had already taken a photograph of the hall's main staircase, and were setting up a second when Shira saw a vapory form gradually assuming the appearance of a woman, moving down the stairs towards them.
Mm-hmm.
Under Shira's direction, Provin quickly took the cap off the lens, while Shira pressed the trigger to activate the camera's flash. Later, when the negative was developed, the famous image of the brown lady was revealed. The account of Provin and Shira's ghostly experience at Rhineham Hall was published in County Life's magazine on December 26, 1936, along with a photograph of the brown lady. I have seen this photo before. This has popped up in famous, History Channel type of caught on camera stuff.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
We'll look it up after this. It's interesting.
Okay.
I didn't find much on this one, but the ghost of Sir Geoffrey Mandeville and his headless hound.
Okay.
I found quite a few headless horsemen in this one because it's old England and it's fun.
Yeah.
Sir Geoffrey lived at the time of one of England's bloodiest and most
Jeez.
bloodiest and most disruptive civil wars, the Anarchy of 1135 to 1153, during which it is said that Christ and his saints slept. So it was a dark time in England. It was a real dark time. He was Earl of Essex, and his manors included land on Barnet, South Mimms, and Monkham Hadley. But he's best known for a major player in the struggle for the throne between Stephen and Matilda, famous battler.
Mm-hmm.
Geoffrey raised a rebellion against Stephen, seizing Ramsey Abbey north of Huntingdon at his base. He expelled the monks and fortified the place, leading the Pope to excommunicate him, and was claimed by the chronicler Henry of Huntingdon that during the occupation of the abbey, blood exuded from the walls of the church in the cloister adjoining witnesses the divine indignation. Dark time in England. Apparently the walls were bleeding in this abbey. Geoffrey was still excommunicated when he was killed in battle the following year, so wasn't eligible for a Christian burial. However, his body was taken by the Knights Templars to their temple in London, where he was interred in a lead coffin, and they hung in the branches of a tree.
What?
I don't know. That's what they did. That's what I read. Eventually, the Prior of Walden Priory, later the Abbey in Essex, which Geoffrey had founded and richly endowed, succeeded in getting his excommunication posthumously reversed, and Geoffrey was given a proper tomb in the temple.
Okay.
But regardless of that, beforehand, he laid down a curse. Rumor claims that Sir Geoffrey also left a curse on the properties he owned, stating that, should they ever be taken away from him, ruin would befall his betrayer, and every 6 years on Christmas Eve, he and his headless dog would haunt the lands draped in a red
Why a headless dog?
Why not? It's his dog. Draped in a red cloak.
Okay.
And when I die, I'm going to say some crazy shit like that. Why not? Hail Mary. Maybe it happens. Ever since his demise, people who have visited the properties he owned, particularly the Pimsbrook Bridge in East Barnet, have reported hearing strange sounds and witnessing the hazy image of a headless dog breaking through the fog, accompanied by a knight in full armor and red cloak.
What?
There's also reports of him charging his horse into like a church's wall and disappearing.
Yeah.
He's pretty much usually on a horse, full clad armor and a red cloak, accompanied with a headless dog.
Interesting.
I couldn't find a lot of first-hand accounts on this one.
Yeah.
Except for one quote that said, "You're more likely to get mugged than haunted on these properties."
Nice.
So apparently they're not in great neighborhoods currently. I have another one for you.
Okay.
The Headless Horseman of Rose Manor.
Okay, fun.
The Ruse Hall, or sometimes Rose Hall.
The Ruse.
ROOS.
Uh-huh.
The Rose Hall, Ruse, or sometimes Rose Hall, is a manor, House of West Beccles in Suffolk. It is a Grade I listed building, so again, very old fancy building.
Yeah.
The name derives from the De Rose family, who owned the building when it was built in 1583. It is said that every Christmas Eve, a carriage pulled by a headless horseman and 2 headless horses ride up the lane toward the house before disappearing. There isn't an incident to cause the specific haunting, but rather hundreds of deaths that took place on this property that might give this sighting some significance. Across the lawn, about 100 feet from the driveway, stands a giant oak tree with a fence preventing anyone from getting close to its trunk. The reason for the tree's protection is because of its local dark historical significance. Centuries before the tree resided on the property, in its place was a gibbet.
What's a gibbet?
A gibbet was a form of public execution where someone would be locked and suspended in a small cage and left to die from the elements. I've
God, I've seen
I've seen these in movies, but I didn't know it was called that.
I didn't know it was real.
It's a gibbet. Hundreds of deaths from local criminals would have been performed on this very spot. Years later, the oak tree was planted in its place, but the purpose remained the same. When the tree was strong enough, it was used as a hanging tree for countless more executions.
So just put more people in a bird cage, essentially?
Nope, they were just hanging them to death. Just good old-fashioned hanging from the tree.
I thought they would put them in a cage and then just
That was before the tree existed. Before that tree was there, it was a public execution spot. Then they planted a tree, and then they executed people from that tree. It's a very dark spot.
This is giving me
the heebie-jeebies.
No, like the what is it? The 1666 vibes from Fear Street.
Ah, okay, I see what you mean. It's a very dark place.
It's giving me those kinds of vibes.
Apart from
Or they would just execute people by the tree, and then the girl haunted the tree, and then she haunted the entire town.
It might be that for the property. Apart from the Christmas Eve haunting, it is said that a woman in white can be seen at the base of the tree where she was executed for witchcraft.
Sounds like
You're onto
Fear
something.
Street.
She can be seen circling the tree 6 times in an attempt to summon the devil.
Mm-hmm.
There are also reports of a pale ghostly girl waving from the windows of the manor house, but she has not been identified. It's usually the first floor windows, I read. Some claim that the carriage is for death in order to transport the souls of the executed with him.
Okay.
Not entirely sure as to why he only visits the hall on Christmas Eve, festive of him, but other reports that a woman dressed in white exits the carriage at the manor's steps, and if you look her in the eye, you are cursed, or it causes instantaneous death. That one's a little more fanciful. I don't think that one's true.
I don't think that one is
But
either,
people do see the carriage, a phantom carriage with headless horsemen and headless horses. Big on headless with these spirits. Why can't we show faces?
Because that would make it less fun. Less spooky.
Less spooky. The Christmas Highwayman. This is a new one.
What? Is this one recent?
No.
No?
Highwayman is in like old time robber. Like a horse carriage robber.
I felt like a...
No. The Christmas Highwayman. The origin of the story goes back to a tragic event that occurred one Christmas Eve late in the 18th century on a road to Harkhurst, Kent in England.
Okay.
According to the legend, there was once a fearsome highwayman known only as Gilbert.
What a name.
Gilbert the fearsome robber. One name man. One evening, the night before Christmas. Gilby.
I feel like, Gilby. Stop it.
He's a bad
today.
man. He's a bad man.
Not today.
One night before Christmas, a man and his daughter were traveling in a horse-drawn coach when Gilbert apprehended them. The daughter was able to exit the coach, but before her father could disembark, the horse became startled and bolted down the road with the man and his coachman in tow.
Jesus.
This left Gilbert and the daughter alone on the side of the road. The two men struggled to get the horses back under control so they could go back and rescue the man's daughter. However, when they arrived back at the scene...
Wait. So the daughter was left alone with Gilby?
Yeah. So what happened
Gilby,
was
the highwayman?
he was robbing the coach and getting him off. She got off, and then before the coachman and the father could get out, the horse was startled and took off.
Okay.
So they were left behind.
Okay.
However, when they arrived back at the scene, she was nowhere to be found. Instead, they saw Gilbert hunched over on the ground with a dagger in his side. Bum, 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 twist.
Okay.
It was said that when Gilbert and the girl were left on the side of the road, he confessed to the girl that he had taken the life of her brother years before. Flying into a rage, the girl pulled a dagger and plunged it into the highwayman, then running off into the woods like Anna Faris from Scary Movie.
Okay.
I'm not crazy. Ah! The father and coachman buried Gilbert on the side of the road and left the scene.
They buried him?
They buried him right there on the side of the road.
To be honest, if it was me, I just would have left him.
Leave him there?
Yep.
Not my problem. The daughter was found by the villagers on Christmas morning. Although she was not physically harmed, the incident was said to have driven her mad. So she literally maybe ran off into the forest like Anna Faris from Scary Movie.
Literally. Saying, I'm not crazy, I'm not crazy, but she's literally crazy.
Angry by his untimely death, it is said that the highwayman can be seen on the side of the road every Christmas Eve, looking for the father and daughter that killed and buried him. Local legends say that Gilbert was buried on the side.
To be honest, they were nice enough to even bury the man.
Yeah, that was fine. I mean, they murdered him too, but he was trying to rob them, so I mean, it's a little, fair game.
For the times, they were too nice to bury him.
Wow, dark. Christmas.
No.
It's Christmas Eve.
No, he was trying to rob me, and then he was trying to probably kill me.
Well, and he killed your brother.
Yeah, fuck him.
Local legends say that Gilbert was buried by the side of the road, and every Christmas Eve he can be seen wandering the area, waiting for the coach with the man and the daughter to pass by again to exact his revenge.
Keep looking, Gilby.
Other people account seeing the entire attempted robbery and murder played out by spectral forms on the side of the road. I would say you should continue on your way either or to your holiday destination if you see this.
I probably would stop and take a gander.
You take a gander?
Yeah,
Too spooky.
Taking a gander.
Seems like a highway robbery again anyway.
I probably would
trick.
question it. I'd be like, am I seeing this?
The Ghost of Anne Boleyn. Anne Boleyn was the Queen of England from 1533 to 1536 as the second wife of King Henry VIII. The odd circumstance of her marriage and death by beheading for treason made her a key figure in the political and religious upheaval that marked the start of the English Reformation.
Okay.
You've probably heard of Anne Boleyn before, maybe not in great detail, but she is a famous figure in England that is said to haunt quite a few different places around England.
Interesting.
But, of course, she does have a Christmas one.
Yeah.
She had been engaged twice before King Henry began his pursuit of Anne, but both were called off by higher powers. First to her Irish cousin, James Butler, the 9th Earl of Ormond, that was called off, and then a secret betrothal to Henry Percy, son of Henry Percy, the 5th Earl of Northumberland. But that betrothal was broken off when the Earl refused to support their marriage.
Oh. So the first one didn't go through because the uncle was like, no.
Yeah, and then the second one they just also didn't agree with. In 1526, Henry VIII started showing interest in Anne despite him being currently married to Catherine. And Anne was uninterested in his pursuit. She had no interest in becoming a mistress to the king as her sister Mary had done. She saw how unfulfilling that life was. Mm-hmm. Undeterred by this...
I'd be a mistress.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of them die or get sick. I don't think you get treated great.
I know, but you don't really have to deal with public criticism. I mean, kind of.
Are you sure?
Yeah, but I mean, like, you don't have to...
You were literally the king's whore, known as the king's whore.
That's fine.
Okay. Interesting take.
I'll be a whore.
Undeterred by this, the king set things in motion to annul his marriage to Catherine. Unfortunately for him, the Catholic Church would not allow their separation. So the king decided that it was in his best interest to break down the church's power structure within the country and began closing monasteries. Yep, and began closing monasteries and nunneries. So this is just the big beginning of the separation of the church and the state in England.
Yeah.
Henry and Anne were formally married on January 25th, 1533, after they had already held a secret wedding on November 14th, 1532. The marriage was first denied and then approved by the archbishop, and both the archbishop and King Henry were excommunicated by the church, creating this big first fraction between the two.
Okay.
The king took control of the Church of England, and Anne was crowned Queen of England on June 1st, 1533. Mm-hmm. That September, she gave birth to the future Queen Elizabeth I, and Henry was disappointed to have a daughter rather than a son to carry his line.
As they usually are.
He declared that he loved Elizabeth, but hoped a son would soon follow. Anne would end up having 3 miscarriages, never being able to produce a son for the king, and by March 1536, Henry was courting Jane Seymour.
Another lady who could probably produce him an heir.
He's moved on. Henry would instigate an investigation against Anne for high treason in April 1536, all seeming because she did not live up to his expectations.
Bitch.
On May 2nd, she was arrested and sent to the Tower of London, where she was tried before a jury of peers, including Henry Percy, her former lover, or at least suitor, and her uncle Thomas Howard, the 3rd Duke of Norfolk. Despite these people whom you would assume would be on her side, she was convicted on May 15th and beheaded 4 days later. The full charges against her included adultery, incest with her brother George, and plotting to kill the king. But historians today find these accusations unconvincing.
Yeah.
And merely a way for the king to make his wife disappear.
Right.
After her daughter Elizabeth became queen in 1558, Anne became venerated as a martyr and a heroine of the English Reformation, clearing her name, but it would appear that the spirit of Anne Boleyn is still not at rest. There are multiple locations that are said to conjure the spirit of Anne Boleyn, which is not a surprise as she was an influential character and had an emotionally charged life. She had multiple failed marriage attempts leading to her disastrous marriage and murder by the king. We'll start with the Tower of London. Anne Boleyn's ghost has been seen numerous occasions at the Tower of London. This would make sense as it was the site of her imprisonment and execution. One famous account, a captain of the guard saw a light flickering in the locked chapel royal late one night. He tried to uncover the source of the light by climbing up a ladder, but was met with an unbelievable scene inside. He witnessed a procession of knights and ladies dressed in ancient costumes pacing in the chapel. In the lead of the procession walked an elegant female whose face he could not see, but whose figure resembled that of Anne Boleyn's in portraits that he had seen.
Figure?
Just her figure.
I feel like a figure is people can have
Hard
a
to spot. And it's a big puffy dress.
Well, people have common shapes.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
It seems a little loose.
Yeah.
The procession disappeared before his eyes. I don't know if we have a positive ID on that one. That seems pretty loose.
I mean, he says he recognized her figure.
From portraits, not knowing her personally. This is many years after. In 1864, a soldier on duty near the lieutenant's lodgings also claimed to see Anne's ghost. He claimed to have confronted and challenged a mysterious white figure, similar to the others.
That's one thing you should not do, is challenge a ghost.
Well, according to Ghost Adventures, you can do it all the time for many seasons.
I know, but you shouldn't.
True. This is similar to another story. He claimed to have confronted and challenged the mysterious white figure, and similar to another story we talked about earlier. When he received no response, he plunged his bayonet into the figure, much like the person just shooting, only to find that his weapon passed through the figure. Supposedly, an officer lodged at the Bloody Tower saw the whole event take place from his window and corroborated the story.
Really?
Supposedly. Windsor Castle. Windsor Castle is the largest and oldest occupied castle in the world. There are two stories that you will hear associated with Anne Boleyn at this location, and one seems believable and the other feels like a ghost story to me.
Okay.
It is said that you can see her spirit through the window of the Dean's Cloister in the castle. The more fantastical version of the haunting in this place is that her headless spirit can be seen running through the halls with her decapitated head screaming from her clutching hands. If she was going to do that anywhere, I feel like it would be the Tower of London, where she was actually beheaded, maybe.
Yeah.
Seems a little far-fetched. But again, this is just Anna Faris running crazy through the halls, screaming. Hampton Court.
Hands in the air, waving back and forth.
I'm not crazy! I'm not crazy! Anne's ghost has been seen at Hampton Court wearing a blue or black dress, some dark color, hard to say, usually night, and it's opaque, you know. Some accounts claim she is headless during these manifestations, which again I would argue, how do you really know who it is?
Right.
She has a very famous figure, apparently, but I think people are just making huge jumps, leaps, and assumptions because, you know, she's famous.
Yeah.
Rochford Hall. Rochford Hall in Essex is a manor house said to be where King Henry VIII first caught eyes with young Anne Boleyn. The Boleyns owned the home, and it was claimed to be the setting place for a secret meeting between King Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn.
What was the age difference between Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn?
I actually have no idea.
So I looked it up, and it says Henry was about 41 when he married Anne, and Anne was in her late 20s. So maybe it doesn't really specify, but
I mean, 20-year difference.
Almost like a 20-year difference.
All right, creepy.
Close. But it said late 20s, so it could be like maybe
That's true.
10, 15.
Something a little less creepy.
Yeah.
The Boleyns owned the home, and it was claimed to be the setting place for secret meetings between King Henry and Anne Boleyn. If you want to get real fantastical with it, it was rumored that there was a secret tunnel system beneath the home that the king used as a discreet escape route from the house. I don't think that's true.
Why?
Again, we're taking famous people and we're making fantastical stories. They're secret tunnels. It seems like she wasn't too into the relationship.
Why can't there be secret tunnels?
Because it seems like she wasn't too into the relationship in the first place, so we're adding like a whole courting part of this. I don't know.
Have you ever seen Hostel? They have secret tunnels.
That's a fucked up horror movie.
But I'm just saying that secret tunnels are possible.
That's true. Go back and see Loch Ness. According to previous owners, there are stories and sightings of a headless lady around the home and feelings of extreme cold in some of the other rooms.
Ooh.
Always coming around headless, she is. Blickling Hall. This is another fantastic story that has common things to other ghost stories we've mentioned already.
People just see her everywhere, huh?
She's all over. We haven't even gotten to our Christmas one. On the anniversary of her death, it is said that a carriage with a headless coachman and 4 headless horses pulls into the property, delivering the headless spirit of Anne Boleyn to the front doorstep before disappearing. Anne will then roam the rooms and the halls of the property until sunrise, when she will also disappear. It just seems like from this time period, it was very famous to have a headless coachman, headless horses. It's very
headless everything.
Very popular theme, headless hounds. And finally, we have our Christmas haunting from Anne Boleyn. Hever Castle. Anne's ghost is said to appear each Christmas at her childhood home in Hever Castle. It is said that she will manifest beneath a great oak tree where Anne and Henry Percy once courted. This one seems a little more believable because this is the actual person who wasn't her cousin who she was pursuing.
Yeah.
Her ghost can also be seen walking across the bridge on the property on Christmas, which crosses the River Eden on the castle grounds. So those are the many major hauntings of Anne Boleyn, but a reoccurring annual Christmas haunting at her old home.
Cute.
Ghostly Christmas carols at the Hotel Bethlehem.
Okay. Where's the Hotel Bethlehem?
Where?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, okay. It's just like, where is it?
I don't know.
I don't know what Hotel Bethlehem is.
It'll probably come up.
Yeah, it probably will.
This is a fun one because we're going to be actually mentioning a familiar face from
Jesus.
No, what? A familiar. Well, Bethlehem.
Bethlehem. It was a joke and it did not land.
No, a familiar face from a previous episode.
Okay. God, that's a bummer. You didn't get it.
Mary or May Yohe. Born at the Eagle Hotel in April 1866, May Augusta Yohe was a lively and showy little girl.
Oh, much like you.
I was a showy little girl.
Yes.
Her grandfather, Caleb Yehu, owned and operated the beautiful Eagle Hotel. She could be frequently seen performing for the guests in the lobby by singing or dancing, and eventually garnered enough attention for people to pool together their money in order to send May to Paris in order to study opera.
Oh, wow, that's quite a stretch.
Mm-hmm. In 1888, she was starting to make headlines across the country as one of the biggest stars of the stage, but she was also starting to garner a negative reputation in publications relating to her numerous romantic flings and suitors.
Let the girl live.
Let her live her life. In the 1890s, she went to perform in London for Queen Victoria's son, Prince Edward, and there she met Lord Francis Clinton Hope, a wealthy British lord, and they were married soon after. You may remember from our previous episode that he owned a very famous jewel called the Hope Diamond, named after them, which she wore on a number of times, possibly cursing her. Her marriage to Lord Hope didn't last, and she was again making headlines for leaving her husband for a handsome American soldier. This soldier would ironically end up stealing her jewelry and leaving her poverty-stricken years later.
Damn.
She would end up dying in poverty after a string of failed relationships. Reports at the end of her life claim that she said her time at Bethlehem Hotel were some of the happiest of her life, which is why you may still see her spirit lingering there today. There are a few places that she is said to be seen within the grounds. For some reason, the third floor exercise room, not sure what it used to be, but more fittingly, in the lobby where she used to perform, especially around Christmas time.
Okay.
Multiple guests have seen the phantom of the former performer hanging out around the Christmas tree in the lobby during the holiday season. There's also a chance you may hear her singing festive Christmas carols around the player piano. On many occasions, the piano is started up all on its own, and many of the staff believe it's the spirit of Mary wanting to perform another number. I argue that it's a player piano, and there's probably a timer you guys don't know about. But that can't account for the ghostly female singing around the piano.
Yeah, that's true. Unless they have it pre-recorded also.
That could be. I have one more for you.
Okay.
This is going to be our last one.
Okay.
And it's the ghost of Poland's kings.
Poland's kings? Like...
all of them.
Okay.
The great kings of the past, much like Mufasa. They all get together.
They sit in the sky and they judge everyone?
Nah, they go to the basement of a castle and they talk politics.
Oh, cool. Okay.
It's not even a joke. In Polish tradition, it is believed that the spirits of loved ones are able to come back to visit on this holy holiday. It would be custom to leave an open seat for past loved ones open at the table for them to rejoin the family. This tradition is no less important at Wawel Castle.
What?
Wawel. Wawel.
Yeah.
I didn't get pronunciation on this one, I'm sorry. Said to be one of the most haunted locations in the city of Krakow, possibly because it is the resting place of Polish royalty.
Okay.
It is said that every Christmas Eve, the kings of the past will return to have a meeting in the basement of the castle. They sit for hours and debate on the fate of Poland.
Hours?
Hours. And they are led by Bolesław Chrobry. Bolesław Chrobry, the first crowned king of Poland. Again, sorry for all these pronunciations. I actually didn't look these ones up. I failed on these last few stories. After a while of debating, an unnaturally big knight appears in the chamber to ask a question.
Okay.
Is it time, my lord? The knight will ask. No, not yet, says Trowbridge.
We got a couple more hours to go, man.
The leader then everything is said to disappear. The knight's question is related to another Polish legend, according to which an enchanted army sleeps in the Tatra Mountains. They will awake and fight at a critical moment for the country, kind of like in Lord of the Rings, the third one.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a little bit stolen from that.
Interesting.
That there's an army waiting in the mountains for a cataclysmic event, that the king will set them out.
Yeah.
There's also supposed to be a dragon in the basement.
Oh, that's so cool.
And there are dragon bones hanging from a chain
Dragon bones?
outside of the castle.
No.
I saw a picture of them. It's a big old chain, and they got a big old couple big old bones hanging there.
Are you sure they're not dinosaur bones?
It could be, but there's
They
also
said-
a curse related to this, or a prophecy.
Of course there is.
If those bones fall from the castle, it is said it will mark the beginning of the end of the world. There are a bunch of different magic ghost stories coming from this location and Poland, so we might be going back to Poland later to see some of these magic stories, because it was a little bit of fun. That's all I have for ghost stories.
I want to
for
see
right
the
now.
dragon bones.
Well, you can look up pictures after this.
No,
It's
I want to see them.
in person?
Yeah.
Then we'll go to
I want to
Poland.
touch them.
Okay. I don't think you're allowed anywhere near that, or you'll mark the end of the world. You don't want to cause it.
Well,
I don't want you to
that's only if
cause
they
it.
fall.
Yeah, so don't. How about we just leave the mysterious doomsday
I've been
stuff
working on
alone?
gentle touching.
Oh, yeah? Well, that's all I have for Christmas stories for this one. We might get a few more before the actual holiday hits.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to bring back this old-timey tradition to find some old Victorian, Jacobean ghost stories.
Fun.
If you like what you heard, make sure you like and subscribe on your favorite podcast app, rate and review. If you want more content out there, check out the entire Majestic Jam Network, Urban Hermit, Cold Classics Podcast, and the Highwire Podcast. Until then, we'll check you in the next one.
Bye. Bye.